Don't touch the trap, unless you are willing to be found. The whisper slid through Emily Carter's mind before she saw the wolf, before she saw the iron teeth locked around its back leg, before she understood why the whole forest had gone silent. She stopped beneath the black pines, one hand pressed to her chest, her breath turning white in the frozen air. Snow covered the ground in a soft, clean sheet, but the clearing ahead looked disturbed, clawed open by panic and pain. At its center lay a white wolf larger than any animal Emily had ever seen, its fur bright as moonlight against the dark woods, its silver eyes fixed on her with a warning so human it made her knees weaken. Every lesson she had ever been taught screamed at her to run. Wolves like that did not belong near Grey Hollow. Wolves like that belonged to legends told beside locked doors, to royal banners, to the cold northern throne where Alpha King Nathaniel Frost ruled with a voice no pack dared disobey. Emily was not brave enough for legends. She was only an Omega in a worn gray coat, banished from the winter hunt feast because Madison Vale had wrinkled her perfect nose and said Emily's weak scent ruined the ceremony. The laughter still clung to her like smoke. Weak little healer. Useless little shadow. Go gather herbs where no one has to look at you. So she had gone, because Omegas learned early that obedience hurt less than resistance. Her basket hung crooked from her arm now, filled with wintergreen and pine needles, ordinary things meant for ordinary aches. Nothing in that basket could help the creature watching her from the snow. The trap was old black iron, circled with faint markings that pulsed like embers beneath frost. Not a hunter's trap, not a farmer's trap, something made with purpose, something forbidden. The wolf shifted, and the metal tightened with a soft, cruel click. A low sound left its throat, not a snarl, not a plea, but a restraint so fierce it broke something inside her. Emily took one step forward. The wolf's ears flattened. "I know," she whispered, though her voice shook. "I shouldn't be here." The wind moved through the trees, carrying the smell of cold earth, pine sap, and something deeper, like winter itself had a heartbeat. She saw words carved into the curved side of the trap, half buried under snow. For the king who forgot his mate. Emily's fingers went numb. She did not know what it meant, but the sentence felt personal, as if it had been waiting years for her eyes. The wolf stared harder, silver gaze burning through the dark. "I don't know who you are," she said, kneeling slowly in the snow. "But no one deserves to be left alone like this." The wolf did not move as Emily reached for the trap, but the air around him changed. It grew colder, sharper, as if the forest had drawn a breath and held it. Emily could feel the warning in his stillness. One wrong motion, one careless touch, and whatever strength remained in that enormous body might rise against her. She swallowed hard and set her basket down in the snow. "I am not going to hurt you," she whispered, though she was not sure he believed her. Most people did not. In Grey Hollow, Emily's hands were useful only when someone needed tea steeped, linen folded, or a frightened child calmed after a bad dream. They called her gentle, as if it were another word for weak. They had no idea gentleness sometimes took more courage than a raised fist. The iron trap was half buried beneath the wolf's pale fur, its dark metal carved with runes that seemed to shift whenever Emily tried to focus on them. Her stomach tightened. She had seen marks like those only once, in the restricted books at the Pack Infirmary, beside warnings about royal bloodlines and old northern magic. This was not meant for a wild animal. This was made for someone powerful enough to frighten powerful men. The wolf watched her kneel closer. His eyes were silver, but not empty silver, not the flat shine of ice. There was thought there. Pain. Pride. A patience so ancient it made Emily feel very young. "You understand me, do you not?" she breathed. The wolf's gaze flicked to her face, and for one impossible second, she felt an answer press against her mind like a hand against a closed door. "Yes." Emily froze. Her heart beat so loudly she could hear it beneath the hush of falling snow. She looked back toward the distant ridge where lanterns from Grey Hollow glimmered through the trees, almost a mile away. Music from the winter hunt feast drifted faintly on the wind. They were laughing, dancing, celebrating strength while she knelt in the dark beside a wounded creature no one else would have stopped to save. The thought steadied her. Slowly, she removed her gloves. The cold bit at her fingers immediately, but she needed to feel the mechanism. She brushed snow from the hinge and found a pressure pin hidden beneath a strip of black iron. The trap responded to her touch with a low hum that crawled up her arm. The wolf's breathing changed. "Stay with me," Emily said softly. "Please, just stay still." Her fingertips found the release bar. It would take force, more force than she thought she had. She braced one hand beneath the lower jaw of the trap and pressed the other against the pin. The metal resisted. Emily pushed harder. A sting flashed across her palm as the rune warmed under her skin, but she did not pull away. Memories of Madison's laughter, Beta Rowan's cold stare, and every whispered insult rose behind her eyes. Weak little healer. Broken Omega. Nothing worth choosing. Emily clenched her teeth. "Not tonight," she whispered. The release snapped open with a sound that echoed through the clearing. The wolf pulled free, not with panic, but with controlled, exhausted grace. Emily fell back into the snow, breathless, her hand trembling. A thin line of red marked her palm where the rune had burned hot for only a moment, then faded into silver light. The wolf lowered his head toward her hand. Emily should have been afraid. Instead, she felt the strange ache of being seen. His nose hovered above her palm, and the silver in his eyes brightened. The forest went utterly still. Then, far behind her, a branch cracked under a boot. Emily turned. Torchlight moved between the trees. Voices followed, sharp and familiar. Madison Vale's voice cut through the snow like polished glass. Well, look what the little Omega found." Madison Vale stepped into the clearing with 3 hunters behind her and a torch lifted high, its orange light trembling across the snow. Her white fur cloak looked untouched by the weather, fastened with a silver clasp shaped like a crescent moon, the kind only high-ranking daughters were allowed to wear during the winter hunt. Behind her stood Beta Rowan, broad-shouldered and stern, his eyes moving from Emily to the white wolf and then to the open trap in the snow. The moment he saw the markings on the iron, his face changed. Not fear. Not exactly. Recognition. Emily slowly pushed herself to her feet, keeping her injured hand close to her coat. The wolf remained behind her, breathing hard but standing now, his enormous body casting a pale shadow over the ground. Madison smiled the way she always did when she found a softer place to press. "You were told to gather herbs, Emily, not sneak through restricted woods and tamper with royal property." Emily's throat tightened. He was trapped. "It is an animal," one of the hunters said, though his voice lacked conviction. No one in the clearing truly believed that. The wolf's presence filled the trees, quiet and immense, like a storm waiting beyond the mountains. Madison took one step closer, her gaze flicking to Emily's bare hand. "And you touched the trap." Beta Rowan's jaw hardened. "Do you know what you have done?" Emily did not. Not completely, but she knew what she had seen. She knew the carved words. She knew the way the iron had hummed under her skin. She knew the wolf had understood her when no one in Grey Hollow ever tried to. "I helped something that was suffering," she said. Her voice came out soft, but it did not break. Madison laughed once, bright and cold. "Listen to her. The little healer thinks kindness changes law." She turned toward the hunters. "Take the wolf. If it carries royal blood, Grey Hollow will be rewarded. If it does not, we will still have proof that Emily broke pack command and entered forbidden land." The hunters hesitated. Their boots shifted in the snow, but none of them rushed forward. The white wolf lowered his head, silver eyes fixed on them with such calm authority that the torchlight seemed to shrink. Emily felt him behind her, felt the warmth of his breath stir the loose strands of hair at her shoulder. She should have stepped away. Any sensible Omega would have. But all her life, stepping away had only taught cruel people to take more space. So Emily moved in front of him. Not much, just one small step. Madison's expression sharpened. "Move." Emily's heart pounded against her ribs. No, the word surprised everyone, including her. It hung in the frozen air, small but unbending. Beta Rowan's eyes narrowed. "Omega, remember your place." Emily looked at him, and for the first time that night, she did not lower her gaze. "I am remembering it." The clearing went silent. Something silver flickered beneath the skin of her marked palm, hidden against the fold of her coat, pulsing in time with the wolf's breath. Madison saw the light and stiffened. "What is that?" Emily glanced down too late. The faint mark on her wrist had begun to glow, delicate and unmistakable, shaped like a crescent moon wrapped around a northern star. Beta Rowan stepped back as if the symbol itself had spoken. That cannot be, he whispered. Madison's confidence cracked for only a second before anger rushed in to cover it. She is faking it. Omegas do not carry royal marks. The white wolf gave a low, quiet sound. It was not loud. It did not need to be. Every hunter in the clearing went still. Emily felt the air shift behind her, heavy with a power waking from silence. Snow lifted from the ground without wind. The torch flame bent low, as though bowing. Then a voice, deep and controlled, moved through Emily's mind with impossible clarity. Step aside, little moon. This time, let me stand for you. Emily did not step aside at first. Her body understood the command before her heart accepted it, but fear held her in place, wrapped around her ribs like ice. The voice inside her mind had not sounded cruel. That was what frightened her most. It had sounded familiar, intimate in a way memory could not explain, as if some hidden part of her had been waiting in the dark for those exact words. Little moon. No one had ever called her that. Not in Grey Hollow. Not in any life she remembered. Behind her, the white wolf moved, and every person in the clearing seemed to feel it. Madison's torch trembled. Beta Rowan's face drained of color. The hunters took careful steps back through the snow, suddenly less interested in reward than survival. Emily turned just enough to see the wolf lower his great head toward her injured hand. He did not touch her. He only breathed over the silver mark glowing at her wrist, and the light answered him. It brightened, soft and clean, spilling across her palm like moonlight poured into skin. A warmth rose through Emily's arm, not painful, not frightening, but ancient. The snow beneath her knees, her hands, her boots, began to glitter with tiny sparks of silver. Madison's voice cracked. Stop that. Whatever trick this is, stop it. Emily looked at her, stunned. I am not doing anything. But something was happening. The trees around the clearing creaked under a wind that did not reach the ground. The clouds slid away from the moon, and the wolf's white fur shone so brightly it seemed less like fur than winter light made living. Then he stepped past Emily. Slowly, deliberately, not toward the hunters, but between them and her, placing his body where hers had been. The movement was protective, unmistakable, and so quiet that it made Madison's earlier cruelty feel childish and small. Beta Rowan lowered his head a fraction. Royal blood, he whispered. Madison heard him and stiffened. You do not know that. I know enough to kneel when the North looks back at me. The words left Rowan in a shaken breath. One by one, the hunters lowered themselves, not fully, not gracefully, but with the stiff panic of men who had spent their lives obeying rank and had just realized they were standing before something far above them. Madison remained upright. Her pride would not let her bend. The wolf looked at her once, and the torch in her hand went out. Darkness folded over the clearing, but Emily was not afraid. The silver mark on her wrist gave enough light to see the wolf's outline, the bowed heads, Madison's frozen expression, the black trap lying useless in the snow. Then the wolf's body shimmered. Emily blinked, breath caught in her throat. The shape before her blurred like a reflection disturbed on water. White fur dissolved into shadowed cloth. Paws became boots planted firmly in the snow. The great bowed head rose into the figure of a man taller than any she had ever seen, broad-shouldered beneath a dark northern coat, his hair pale as frost, his face carved with the severe beauty of winter mountains. His eyes remained silver, human now, but no less wild, no less impossible. Alpha King Nathaniel Frost stood where the wolf had been, calm as a throne, cold as a storm. The clearing forgot how to breathe. Madison dropped the dead torch. Beta Rowan lowered himself fully then, one knee pressed into the snow. Your Majesty. Emily's pulse thundered. She should have bowed. She should have looked down. But Nathaniel Frost was looking only at her, as if the entire pack behind them had faded into nothing. He took one slow step closer. The silver mark on her wrist glowed brighter, and something inside Emily answered with a tenderness so sharp it almost hurt. His voice, when he spoke aloud, was low enough to make the snow seem silent. Emily. Her name left his mouth like a promise remembered. She stared at him, unable to move. I never told you my name. A shadow of sorrow crossed his eyes, gone almost before she saw it. No, he said softly, but I have known it for a very long time. Emily had heard stories about Alpha King Nathaniel Frost since she was old enough to understand fear. Mothers used his name to quiet reckless children. Alphas lowered their voices when speaking of his throne. Travelers from the northern roads described him as a ruler carved from winter itself, a king who never smiled, never hesitated, and never forgot a debt. But none of those stories had prepared her for the way he looked at her now. Not like a king looking at an omega. Not like a powerful man noticing someone beneath him. He looked at her as if she were the only real thing in the clearing, as if every mile of snow, every throne room, every whispered legend had led him to this exact breath between them. Emily stepped back, and the silver mark on her wrist dimmed as if disappointed. "How do you know me?" she asked. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Madison made a sharp sound behind them. "Your Majesty, forgive the confusion. She is only a servant from Grey Hollow. She has always been strange, and tonight she disobeyed direct orders. We found her interfering with a royal matter." Nathaniel did not look away from Emily. "I know what I found." The quietness of his answer made Madison fall silent. Beta Rowan kept his head lowered, his shoulders tense beneath his heavy coat. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "we did not know the trap had been set within our borders. Grey Hollow would never knowingly allow such an offense." Nathaniel's silver eyes shifted then, and the temperature of the clearing seemed to drop. "Yet your pack followed an omega into forbidden woods with torches and accusations before asking why she was alone." Rowan's mouth closed. Emily felt heat rise in her cheeks, not from shame this time, but from the strange shock of being defended. No one defended her in Grey Hollow. At best, they ignored the cruelty. At worst, they named it discipline. Nathaniel took off his dark northern cloak and placed it around her shoulders with careful hands. The fabric was heavy, warm, and lined with soft black wool. Emily froze beneath it. She had worn cast-off shawls, patched coats, and old dresses made to fit someone else first. Nothing had ever been placed on her with honor. "You are cold," he said. Such a simple sentence. Such an impossible kindness from a man everyone called merciless. Emily looked down because her eyes had begun to burn. "I am fine." "You are shaking." "It happens." "It should not." The answer was so firm, so immediate, that something in her chest loosened and hurt at the same time. Madison's voice returned, thinner now. "Your Majesty, she may have marked herself somehow. Omegas cannot carry northern royal signs. It is not possible." Nathaniel turned his wrist slightly, revealing a mark beneath his cuff, the same crescent wrapped around the same northern star, glowing faintly against his pale skin. The clearing fell into a silence so deep Emily could hear snow settling on pine branches. Her breath caught. "What does that mean?" Nathaniel looked at the mark on his own wrist, then at hers. For the first time, the coldness in his face softened into something almost grieving. "It means the old bond was not destroyed." Emily's knees felt unsteady. Old bond. A distant horn sounded from beyond the ridge, low and mournful. Nathaniel's expression changed instantly. "King again. Storm again." He looked toward the dark tree line. "The ones who set that trap will be close." Rowan lifted his head. "There are others?" "There are always others when cowardice hides behind iron." Nathaniel's gaze returned to Emily, and though his voice stayed calm, urgency moved beneath it. "The trap was not meant to catch me, Emily. It was meant to wake you." The words struck something buried so deep inside her that the world tilted. For a heartbeat, she was not in the clearing. She saw white stone towers beneath northern lights. A staircase of ice. Her own hand, smaller, younger, slipping from someone's grasp. Then the memory vanished, leaving her breathless. Nathaniel saw it happen. He reached toward her, then stopped before touching, as if even a king would not cross the distance without permission. "You remember something." Emily pressed a hand to her chest. "I do not know." The horn sounded again, closer now. Nathaniel looked past her into the trees, his silver eyes narrowing. "Then we leave before they remind you the cruel way." Madison stepped forward in panic. "Leave? She belongs to Grey Hollow." Nathaniel's voice turned quiet enough to freeze the words in the air. "No, she was hidden in Grey Hollow." He looked at Emily again, and the cloak around her shoulders stirred in the wind. "And I have finally found her." The horn rolled through the trees a third time, and Emily felt the sound move under her skin like a memory trying to rise. Nathaniel's cloak covered her shoulders, but the warmth could not stop the sudden chill gathering in her chest. "Hidden in Grey Hollow." The words repeated inside her, impossible, and yet heavier than truth. She looked back toward the distant lanterns of the pack house, toward the place where she had scrubbed floors, brewed remedies, endured laughter, and taught herself to be small enough to survive. It should have felt like home. From the edge of the forbidden woods, it looked like a house with all the windows closed. "I cannot just leave," she said. Madison made a sound of relief, as if Emily had finally remembered her place. Nathaniel heard it too. His eyes flicked once toward Madison, and the sound vanished. Then he looked back at Emily, and his voice gentled without losing its command. "You can choose." That stopped her more than any order could have. Choose. No one in Grey Hollow used that word for omegas. Omegas were assigned, dismissed, corrected, tolerated. Choice belonged to those with rank, scent, strength, family. Emily had none of those things. Or so she had believed until a royal mark began glowing beneath her sleeve, and the most feared alpha in the north looked at her, as if her answer mattered. "If I go with you," she whispered, "they will say I betrayed my pack." Nathaniel's gaze moved over the bowed hunters, Beta Rowan's pale face, Madison's tight expression. "A pack that protects your silence only when it benefits them has already betrayed you." The words were not loud, but they landed with the weight of a closing gate. Emily wanted to reject them. She wanted to defend the only life she had known. But then Madison stepped forward, her beautiful face sharpened by fear. "Emily, think carefully. You have no idea what he is. He is not kind. He is not safe. At least in Grey Hollow, you know what you are." Emily looked at her. The old answer rose automatically. Nothing. A weak omega. A servant. A mistake. But the mark on her wrist pulsed once, soft as a heartbeat, and another image flashed behind her eyes. Herself standing beneath northern lights, wearing a pale blue dress instead of gray wool. A younger Nathaniel before her, not smiling, but almost, his hand extended like a promise he was afraid to make. Then darkness. Snow. Someone crying her name. Emily staggered. Nathaniel moved closer, but still did not touch her. "Breathe," he said. She tried. The air came in sharp and cold. "Why do I see things when I look at you?" "Because part of you remembers before fear taught you to forget." The answer made the clearing tilt again. Beta Rowan lifted his head, his voice low. "Your Majesty, if she truly bears the old bond, Grey Hollow must formally present her at court. There are laws. Procedures." Nathaniel's face returned to winter. "There are also laws against hiding a bonded soul under a false pack record." Rowan went still. Emily turned slowly toward him. "False record." Madison's eyes widened. "Do not listen to this." But Beta Rowan did not deny it fast enough. That was the first crack. The second came when the black trap in the snow began to hum again. Its runes flared, not toward Nathaniel, but toward Emily's glowing wrist. From the dark trees beyond the clearing, unseen riders approached, their lanterns blue instead of gold. Nathaniel stepped in front of Emily once more, calm and immovable. They followed the bond light. Emily clutched the cloak at her throat. "Who are they?" Nathaniel's silver eyes stayed on the trees. "Men who have spent years making sure I never found you." The blue lanterns drew closer, turning the snow the color of frozen glass, and Emily understood with sudden, breathless certainty that Grey Hollow had never been the beginning of her story. It had been the hiding place. The riders emerged from the trees in a slow line, their blue lanterns swaying beside dark saddles and hooded faces. They did not shout. They did not rush. That quiet confidence frightened Emily more than any raised voice could have. Snow softened the sound of their horses, making them seem almost unreal, like figures stepping out of one of the northern nightmares whispered around Grey Hollow hearths. Nathaniel remained in front of her, still as a wall of black stone, the hem of his coat stirring in the wind. His presence changed the clearing. Even the horses stopped several yards away and refused to come closer. The first rider lowered his hood. He was older, with neatly combed silver hair and a narrow face that held no warmth at all. Emily did not know him, yet her body reacted before her mind could. Her fingers tightened around Nathaniel's cloak. Her wrist mark flickered. The man's pale eyes moved to it, and for the first time, his calm expression cracked. "So the little healer opened the wrong trap," he said. Nathaniel's voice came low and cold. "Lord Ashford." The name passed through the clearing like a winter warning. Beta Rowan inhaled sharply. Madison stepped back. Emily looked from one face to another, trying to understand why a man she had never seen could make so many wolves lower their eyes. Lord Ashford smiled, but it did not soften him. Your Majesty, we believed you were traveling farther north tonight. You believed many things, Nathaniel said. Most of them will be corrected. Ashford's gaze slid past him to Emily, not with curiosity, but assessment, the way merchants looked at cloth or cattle at market. Miss Carter, you must be frightened. That is understandable. You have been caught in a matter far beyond your station. Emily's old instincts told her to apologize, to shrink, to let powerful people decide what shape her life should take. But Nathaniel had said she could choose, and the words still glowed somewhere inside her. She lifted her chin. Do I know you? Ashford's smile thinned. Not anymore. The answer struck the clearing harder than a confession. Emily's breath caught. Not anymore. Madison whispered, What does that mean? Ashford ignored her. The girl is unstable, Your Majesty. Old magic can confuse an Omega mind. Let my people take her to a safe house. We will examine the mark, confirm its origin, and avoid unnecessary panic. Nathaniel did not move. You will not take one step toward her. You cannot place the entire North at risk because of a sentimental echo. She is not an echo. The words were quiet, but Emily felt them in her bones. Ashford's eyes hardened. She vanished for a reason. Nathaniel's control shifted then, not breaking, but tightening. The air became so cold that every breath turned silver. She was taken. Emily stared at him. The clearing blurred at the edges. Taken. A buried door inside her mind opened a fraction, and light spilled through. She saw small hands clutching a moonstone railing. Heard bells ringing across white towers. Felt someone's arms lifting her onto a horse beneath a sky full of northern lights. Then a voice, smooth and calm, saying, Sleep now, little mistake. By morning, even your name will feel borrowed. Emily made a small sound and stepped backward. Nathaniel turned instantly. Emily. She looked at Lord Ashford, and fear gave way to something clearer. You were there. Ashford's face became unreadable. Memories are delicate things. They can lie. Not this one, she whispered. The mark on her wrist brightened until the snow around her boots shimmered. The black trap answered with a final hum. Then its runes faded into dull iron. Whatever purpose it had served was finished. Nathaniel extended his hand, palm open, not commanding, not claiming, only offering. Emily looked at it, then at Grey Hollow behind her, where silence had always been mistaken for peace. She placed her hand in his. The bond light rose between their wrists, soft and silver, and Lord Ashford's calm finally disappeared. Nathaniel faced him with Emily beside him now, not hidden behind him. Tell the court, the Alpha King said. The girl you buried in Grey Hollow has chosen to come home. The moment Emily's hand settled into Nathaniel's, the clearing changed from a place of accusation into a place of witness. The silver light between their wrists did not burst or blaze. It simply spread, quiet and certain, tracing the crescent and northern star on both their skin until even the most stubborn eyes could not deny what they saw. Beta Rowan bowed his head lower. The hunters followed. Madison stood apart, pale and silent, her pride finally too small to hide behind. Lord Ashford looked at their joined hands as if the sight offended every plan he had ever made. A bond light proves very little without court confirmation, he said, but his voice had lost its smooth edge. Nathaniel did not answer him at first. He looked at Emily. That mattered more. In Grey Hollow, people had spoken over her, around her, about her, as though her own life were a room she had no right to enter. Nathaniel waited for her eyes, and when she gave them, he asked softly, Can you walk? Emily nodded, though her legs still felt unsteady. Yes. Then we leave by the eastern trail. My guard is waiting beyond the ridge. Ashford's mouth tightened. Your Majesty, separating her from her registered pack without formal transfer will invite challenge. Nathaniel's expression did not change. Let them challenge. The simple sentence moved through the trees like distant thunder. No threat followed it. No anger. Just certainty. Emily felt the old fear inside her search for a place to hold on and find none. She was still afraid, but it no longer owned all of her. She turned toward Grey Hollow's lanterns one last time. From here, they looked warm, almost kind. That illusion hurt the most. She thought of the infirmary shelves she had organized, the children she had soothed through fevers, the elders whose hands she had held when no one else had time. She had given tenderness to a place that taught her she was worth less than a name spoken with respect. Nathaniel seemed to understand the goodbye she could not say aloud. You owe them no apology for surviving. Emily's throat tightened. I know. She did not know completely, not yet, but she wanted to. Madison stepped forward suddenly, her voice shaking. Emily, you cannot believe he came here for you. Kings do not cross the north for forgotten omegas. Emily looked at her, not with hatred, but with a strange sadness. Maybe that is why you never understood me. You thought being forgotten meant being worthless. Madison's lips parted, but no answer came. Lord Ashford's riders shifted behind him, restless beneath their blue lanterns. Nathaniel turned his silver gaze on Ashford. You will return to court and prepare to answer for the false records, the memory seal, and the trap placed under royal law. Ashford gave a shallow bow. As your majesty commands. It sounded obedient. It felt like a promise of trouble. Emily sensed it too. The mark on her wrist cooled, warning her without words. Nathaniel began leading her toward the eastern trail, but after a few steps, she stopped. The black trap still lay in the snow behind them, open and dull. For some reason, she could not leave it there. She walked back, crouched, and picked up the small silver pin that had released the mechanism. It was no longer hot. Etched along its side, almost too small to read, was a date from 8 years ago. Emily's breath caught. 8 years ago, she had arrived in Grey Hollow with no memories before winter. She closed her fingers around the pin and returned to Nathaniel. This started long before tonight, she whispered. His face softened with the grief of someone who had counted every missing year. Yes. And you looked for me? The question came out smaller than she meant it to. Nathaniel's answer was immediate. Every day. Snow drifted between them, gentle now. No horns sounded. No laughter followed. For the first time in years, Emily felt the road ahead open instead of narrow. She stepped beside him, not behind him, and together they walked into the eastern trees where northern riders waited beneath white banners, while behind them Grey Hollow faded into darkness like a story that no longer had the power to name her. The eastern trail climbed for nearly half a mile through black pines and silver snow before the northern riders came into view. They waited in silence beneath white banners marked with the frost wolf crest, their horses standing calm despite the cold wind moving over the ridge. No one laughed when Emily appeared in Nathaniel's cloak. No one looked at her worn boots or the old gray dress beneath the royal black wool. One by one, the riders lowered their heads, not to Nathaniel first, but to the mark glowing softly on her wrist. Emily stopped walking. The gesture was small, respectful, and it nearly undid her. All her life, she had been taught to enter rooms quietly, to make herself useful before anyone noticed she was there. Now strangers in royal colors were giving her a silence that felt like honor. Nathaniel noticed the tremor in her breath. Too much, he asked. Emily looked at the bowed riders, the white banners, the long road north stretching beneath the stars. I do not know what I am supposed to be. His answer came gently. You do not have to become it tonight. A woman with silver-threaded braids stepped forward from the guard line, her armor polished but simple, her eyes warm in a way Emily had not expected from the royal guard. Your Majesty, she said, then turned to Emily. My lady, I am Captain Nora Whitcomb. The road is secure. My lady. Emily had heard those words spoken to Madison, to visiting noble daughters, to women who smelled of roses and power. Never to her. She almost looked behind herself to see who Captain Nora meant. Nathaniel's hand remained near her back, close enough to steady, never close enough to force. We ride to Frosthaven, he said. At dawn, the court will hear what was hidden. After that, Emily decides what happens next. Captain Nora accepted the order with a nod, but Emily turned to him. I decide. Nathaniel looked down at her, silver eyes reflecting the moon. A bond is not a cage. Not with me. The words sank deeper than warmth. Emily had expected destiny to feel like being claimed, swept away, renamed by someone stronger. Instead, it felt like a door opening and a voice asking whether she wanted to step through. She opened her palm and looked at the small silver pin from the trap, the date etched across it like a scar time had tried to bury. 8 stolen years. 8 winters of lowered eyes and borrowed belonging. Anger should have come first. Instead, grief did, quiet and clean. I want to know who I was, she said. Nathaniel's face softened. Then we will find every truth. And if I do not like what I find, then I will stand beside you while you choose what to do with it. Emily looked back once more. Gray Hollow was hidden beyond the trees now, its lanterns gone, its voices unable to reach her. For years, she had thought freedom would arrive like thunder, loud enough for everyone who doubted her to hear. But it came softly, in falling snow, in a cloak over her shoulders, in a king who knew her name and still waited for her answer. She stepped toward the waiting horse, then paused beside Nathaniel. You called me Little Moon. His expression changed, touched by something older than sorrow. You used to say the north was too dark, he said. I told you even the smallest moon could change the night. Emily's memory stirred, not fully, but enough to leave a glow behind. She did not remember loving him. Not yet. But she remembered the feeling of being safe beside him, and for tonight, that was enough. As the first pale line of dawn touched the far mountains, Emily Carter rode north beside the Alpha King. No longer the hidden Omega of Gray Hollow. No longer the girl everyone had named weak, but the lost light returning to a kingdom that had never stopped waiting.